matter. We believe that Hashem is Bal Milchamot and Zorei Tzedakot. And He's Matzmiach Yeshuot. He's the master of wars. If Aram can infiltrate into Israel and threaten Achav and threaten soldiers of Israel and threaten people living in the Shomron, there must be, behind the scene, a spiritual reason. And in the first attempt of the king of Aram, he seems to be boasting that this war is not even an effort. He's not even sure there's enough soil in the land of the Shomron to account for all his infantry and cavalry and soldiers. And Achav, interestingly enough, gives him some words of musar, words of proper ethical standard, that he shouldn't be too sure of himself. At the same time that this king of Aram gets the message, he's having a few whiskeys. Interesting that the Tanakh says this, because we're going to see that it happens a second time. Amidst this attempt to threaten the Jewish people, on the scene, Hashem sends a prophet. His name is not accounted for, which maybe hints to us that he's not here for a particular person or individual, but for a klali reason. And this prophet, who we're told about, Chazal do tell us that he is Michayahu ben Yimla. He's giving a chance. He approaches Achav, as we saw in verse 13. Are you really aware of the score? Are you aware of the amount of the army that Aram has come, that is putting a matzor, a siege around your city? Why is it important for him to know? Because Hashem told me that He's going to deliver you. He's going to save you. Now, what's the purpose of saving Israel? That's in itself a purpose. But Hashem's objective is to bring Achav closer to Hashem. That he realizes that Hashem is manifesting Himself, supervising over Achav. And therefore, very similar to what was told to Paro, via data keni Hashem. Achav is saying, well, Achav knows who he is, and he knows who he is not. He says, look, I'm a big idolater. I mean, we're the biggest wholesaler in the Middle East, and my record is well known before God. And if that's the case, why would God want to save me? Let me ask the prophet. You want to save me? Well, who's going to be the commander? Pasuk Yudaled, verse 14. You saw that? Vayomer Achav b'mi. B'mi. How? Ken? Who are going to be the soldiers? Now, it's quite obvious that Achav's army has been diluted, has been thinned out over the last few years. He doesn't have a long-standing army, and therefore, according to the laws of nature, he doesn't stand the chance to be a victor in this war. So through who? Who's the army? And the prophet answers, Vayomer ko amar Hashem bin na'arei sarei amedinot. Achav, until the last year or two ago, we learned he was a very powerful force. He was basically in control over all the Middle Eastern nations. Why? Because he was able to subject them to look and search for Eliyahu Navi, and he had everyone working for him. Why? Because he's powerful. His word is a hard word. So over the course of the years that he's been the leader of Israel, he has members of all the nations that are working for him. Okay? And these are their representatives, these nations, and they're under his tutelage, under his leadership. So he has for himself Na'arei Sarei Amedinot. These are young soldiers that are to his array. He has them
young officers.
As officers. Sarei Amedinot. They're younger ones. Vayomer, but he asks the next question, Mi yasora milchama. Okay? Who in the world is going to be leading the war? Who's going to be the chief of staff of the army? Okay? And Hashem through the prophet says, Vayomer Ata, you are. Now, you have to understand that until a moment ago, Achav thinks that he has no chance to win this war, and Hashem interferes in the situation. Obviously, he wants to interfere in the situation so that Achav does tshuva. Now, we're beginning to understand the complexity of this personality called Achav. On the one hand, he's the worst. He allows for so much idolatry. He allows for his wife to call out and try to eliminate all the prophets. He allows all these things. Yet on the other hand, he hasn't let go of his connection to Torah and Am Yisrael. Remember, he cooperated with Eliyahu Navi on Mount Carmel. Remember, he allowed for the slaughtering of the false prophets. Remember that he himself saw how Eliyahu Navi is honoring him when he's going back to his palace is somewhere in the Jezreel Valley or the end of the Shomron. And remember, when Eliyahu is convicting him, and he says to Achav, Ad matai ata posech al shtei seipim. How can you have one foot in idolatry and another foot in Judaism at the same time? How are you allowing for both? In other words, we're dealing here with a complex person. That on the one hand, he's full of idolatry and all the lack of decency, to say the least, that it means. But on the other hand, he's more than the Pinto Yid that you mentioned the other day. He puts on tefillin maybe, he prays to Hashem, but he has this double standard. And Eliyahu Navi is trying to get rid of that double standard.
Question.
Yes.
I asked you once before. Who is worse as a kid?
Who is what?
Who is the worst?
Achav.
Evil.
Chotei u'machti. And therefore the Mishnah says in Sanhedrin, Ein lo chelek ba'olam haba.
Okay. And
He won.
Menachem?
Not as Achav. Not to that degree. Now, it's clear that Achav is, I'm amazed. I mean, I don't have any soldiers. How can I have a victory of the war against Aram if I don't have any soldiers? Okay. So he told all the soldiers, these young soldiers, but who's going to be the mifaked? Right? He certainly didn't think of himself. Not because he's not looking for honor. He loves honor, probably. He's the king of Israel. But I think a person like me, my record is full of idolatry. Certainly God will not perform a miracle to be a victor in the war by someone that's full of idolatry. And Hashem surprises, I have a surprise for you. You're going to be the what? The mifaked. You're going to be the mifaked. Pasuk Tadvav. The war is now coming towards its beginning. Vayifkod et na'arei sarei medinot. Vayu 232 Gee, that's a lot of combat soldiers, huh? 232 combat soldiers. Okay. Yeah. V'achareihem pakad et kol ha'am. Look at the words. The entire collective. Kol b'nei Yisrael. How many are they? Shiv'at alafim. It's not a very large army. Why does the Tanakh see importance to tell us the numbers? Aleph, to tell you that it's a small army. But second, if you remember, we learned a chapter ago, there were still 7,000 people that their knee pads were not used to be bending in order to serve idolatry. Shelo karula Baal. There are 7,000 tzaddikim here in the Shomron, under the leadership of Achav, that have not given in. They don't give in to the Yetzer Hara to serve idolatry. So here it is, this is the standing army, and that doesn't seem to be a lot.
Again, but through history, the armies of Abraham Yeshua, they didn't have.
You're right. The question is, will Achav see this? That Hashem will be on his side to help him overcome the victory, and will he do tshuva as a result? Pasuk Tet Zayin, verse 16. Vayetzu b'tzoraim. Okay? Vayetzu b'tzoraim. It's afternoon time. And what do kings of the nations do when it's already afternoon? They have a few drinks. Okay? Uven Hadad shoteh shikor basukot. Second time. This is like a description, a continued description, what we saw in verse 12. He doesn't drink alone. He's a very social being. But Melachim, remember he has 32 vassal kings that he's in charge of. They're having a drinking party. 32 melech ozer oto. So 32 are all drinking together with this king. What does that tell you about the readiness of Ben Hadad? Aleph, he's not ready. Bet, he doesn't take Achav serious. If the leader who's traveled hundreds of kilometers from the Damascus area is now putting a siege in the Shomron, and they're drinking, the leaders are drinking, it's not serious. Pasuk Yud Zayin, the war is started by who? Vayetzu narei sarei medinot barishona. The best defense? You don't have to live in Liverpool to know this. And here, this is the offense led by, what do they call mercenaries? These people that are working for Achav from other nations. Vayishlach ben Hadad vayagidu lo lemor anashim yotzu mishamron. Now, we're coming out to attack. The attack has yet to begin. And Ben Hadad is told the message. Now, the message is not clear that it's for an attack. People left the siege city. They just went out. But it's not that they're attacking. Notice the words. Anashim yotzu mishamron. What is not identified is that they're not coming out to attack. They just left the city. Until then, they were good boys. They were told, everyone listen, no one leaves the city limits. If so, we'll shoot out you or something like that. No one left. But now people are leaving. Now the question, is it to attack? Or is it to make a treaty? Is it to surrender, put a white flag out? Pasuk Yudchet, Vayomer, the order is from Hadad, Im leshalom yatzau, tifsum chayim. Vim lemilchama yatzau, chayim tafsum. It's very unclear what is the doubling up of the words. If they're coming out to what? Just for peace, grab them alive. And if they're coming out for war, live, grab them. What's going on here? Why is the kfilut here? Apparently, the order is grab them and leave them alive. Maybe they want to afflict the soldiers of Israel. They want to pain them. But why grab them alive and not kill them? But that's the order. The Tanakh doesn't tell us what's behind the order. But it seems to be whether they're coming out for peace or they're coming out to war, leave them alive, grab them, and we'll see what's going to happen with them thereafter. Okay, the war happens, and now let's see what the results are. Pasuk Yud verse 19. Ve'ele yatzu min ha'ir, na'arei sarei amedinot. We're told almost like a second time. They're leading the war for Achav. V'chayol, and maybe the 7,000 soldiers, asher acharehem. What happened? Combat fighting. Vayaku ish isho. Every combat soldier that meets up with the enemy of Hadad, Achav soldiers, smash them. What does it cause? It causes a panic. Vayanusu aram, and they start fleeing. Vayurdefem Yisrael. This is called psychological warfare. Once you see your enemy fleeing, your momentum is growing. Your adrenaline inside your body is even getting stronger, and you're more confident. So the small army of Israel is in hot pursuit of the army of Hadad, the king of Aram. Vayimaleit ben Hadad melech Aram al susu parashim. So apparently they have a picture of what the king looks like, or they can know by way of his dress, I assume. And they're after him. And they can't grab him because he is what? He flees. Vayitzei melech Yisrael, vayach et hasus v'et harachav, v'ikav ha'aram makah gdola. The end of war, part 1. A great victory for Israel. Fantastic defeat by Aram. We're able to probably take over a lot of their cavalry, their infantry, and it's a tremendous victory. Now the question is, what lesson? What conclusion? What can be learned from this war? What does Hashem want from Achav? And now we see how the Hashem steps in by using the prophet again. Pasuk Kaf Bet, Vayigash HaNavi El Melech Yisrael. Vayomer lo, Lech hitchazak, V'da, Urei, Et asher taseh. Ki l'tshuvat hashana, Melech Aram Ole Alecha. Very interesting. We have here a report, a command, and a vision. This is Michael ben Yimla, comes back, talks to Achav, and says, hey buddy, you thought you finished. You're not finished. Lech itchazek, strengthen your army. Lech itchazek, strengthen your army. Meaning, prepare yourself for war. Get an army, get your ammunition, get your weapons, because this is the only way to do. It's clear that God is not just going to help you if you don't help yourself. That's the word of a prophet. It's clear that God is behind you, but you're not going to sit there and twiddle your thumbs. You're not going to just recite Tehillim against Tehillim. Okay? You're not going to cite Tehillim against rockets. Tehillim. Why? The prophet knows something the king doesn't know, and that's the future. Hashem has prophesied to him that the Yortzeit from today, the year from now, part 2 of the war is going to happen. He's going to come up against you. So here, the Achav is told by the prophet what's happening in a year from now and how he has to strengthen himself. So the chidush is that Achav is now given 1 year of time to prepare for the next war. A few days ago, we don't know how long the war actually took place, the people in Shomron faced calamity, tremendous calamity. Because as far as the laws of nature are concerned, the army of Aram is far beyond in size and in strength what Achav has. Okay? And now, a new situation. If you wanted to know in the secret rooms in Syria what Aram is thinking of, how they are planning, and notice, as we're going to read in a moment, that the Goyim think often that this is not just a regular military war, but a war of gods. And that the gods, the idolatry gods, as we learned with the Plishtim. If you remember, when the Plishtim won the war and destroyed Shiloh, and the ark was taken into captivity, and remember the ark went out to war. Am Yisrael took the Aron HaKodesh out to war. And when the Plishtim got their hands on the Aron HaKodesh, they thought, well, our God is stronger than their God. What did they do with the Aron HaKodesh? They put it into their places of worship to show what? That our God is stronger than their gods. We saw this. I heard this from Rav Mordechai in the Golan. I'm sure that I heard from him. And it's a clear thing. And what did God do to their gods in the Plishtim area? Oh, the hand fell off of the image, the nose fell off their head, this and that, to show their God is not a strong God. Okay? Notice now this new part, Pasuk Kav Gimel. V'avdei Melech Aram, his main advisors, Amru Elav. Do you know why they won? I'll tell you why they won. For spiritual reasons. Elohei Harim Elohem. Look, we fought the war in the Shomron. We all know the Shomron is what? 500, 600, 700 meters above sea level. It's a mountainous area. It's obvious that their God is a mountainous God. Once we get them on a valley or on a plate, on a plain area, they don't have a chance. Alkain, Chaskumi, that's why they were able to overcome us. Because the gods of Israel are mountainous gods. Their turf, their home turf is in the mountains. V'ulam, however, Nilachem itam b'mishor. Let's pick a fight, a war, and fight them on a plain, flat area. Im lo nechzak mem, certainly we will be stronger than them. So, look, the Goyim know that they heard about what's happening. A Mount Carmel event where it made a lot of noise in the Middle East. It was in the Carmel Mountains. They knew as well, some of the commentators explain, the Malbim, that we received our Torah on Mount Sinai. The mountain seemed to be connected to the greatness of their God. So let's go ahead and fight them in a different area. Okay? Pasuk Avdal, verse 24. And the solution will be, that's the command from the men of their deities, their religious advisors. We have to fight a war in a straight plain area. Hasera Melachim ish mimkomo. I'm sorry, no, this is different. V'sim pachot tachteyam. No, this is different. This, I see, yeah, no. This is part of the military advice. Remember who was on the side of Aram? 32 vassal kings. These guys are a bunch of puppets. These guys are a bunch of, yeah, they're not strategic commanders. They're not, special units. Get rid of these fat king. I'm adding the word fat, but it doesn't say that. Get rid of these kings and put instead their assistants, their commanders, their military leaders. Then we'll have a chance. Okay? Part 3 of the strategy. Ve'ata timne lecha chayil kachayil anofel me'otach v'sus kasus v'rechev karechev v'nilachama otam b'mishor im lo nechzak mehem v'yishma lekolam v'yasken. What is the advice here given? That we must fill up the rows for all the lost soldiers, for all the lost cavalry, for all the lost chariots that fell in the war. We must fill in, reassert ourselves with enough soldiers and enough cavalry and so on. As we'll learn later, we're talking about something like 130,000 soldiers, which is tremendous, of course, in size. And again, the clear instructions are to pick a fight, pick a plain area, a low flat area. Okay, the prophecy of the prophet Michael comes true. Pasuk Kava, verse 26. Vayilet shuvat hashana. It's the entire circuit of a year has passed. Vayifkod ben Hadad et Aram. He counts his soldiers, and he's now ready for movement. Where's the movement to? Vayal afeka la milchama im Yisrael. Okay.
But not the one.
So we have several opinions. Where is the town called Afek? One opinion is it's in the Sharon area, next to Petach Tikva, next to Rosh Hashanah. Today we have a place next to Rosh Hashanah called Afek. It's certainly in a very lowland area, flat area before the mountain area, and so on. However, for those, and most of the commentaries explain, we're talking about the southern Ramat HaGolan, the southern side of the Ramat HaGolan. In the southern side, there's a place not far from Mitzpeh Shalom, where we took a fantastic view of the Kinneret. It was a lookout site on the southern one called Mitzpeh Shalom. You don't remember that. In any event, Mitzpeh Shalom, this most southern tip of the Golan, where you can overlook and see the entire Kinneret, next to Mitzpeh Shalom is a junction called Afek, Tzomet Afek. I would say about 25 years ago, when we did the Golan trip with our students, we hired a company to do, what is it called? Rappelling? What is it called? Going down mountains? Rappelling? We hired a company, and they brought their equipment, their helmets, their ropes, and everything in a fake. And we went down. I was pretty scared the first time also, don't worry. And it was fun, but it was long because you had to wait. We did 2 lines, and every person had to wait till you got him down, release him, and this and that. That's called a fake, and it's a gorgeous view of the Kinneret. So some say, or many say, that this war is there. It could make a lot of sense, because where's the enemy coming from? They're coming from Syria, the Damascus of today. What is it, 2 days traveling from there to get to this part of the southern Golan? And Israel will have to be alert and climb from the Shomron through the Jezreel Valley, Beit Shan Valley, and climb up the southern Golan. So it seems to be that, according to this understanding, it's exactly the Mishor, the plateau area of the southern Ramat HaGolan. You all know that in spite of the fact that the Golan Heights is 400, 500, or 600 meters above sea level, but the top area is flat, totally flat area. It's an ideal area. It's a plateau, yes. It's much like a plate. It's really very straight. It's not up and down. I mean, as you travel to the northern Golan, you go up and up and up, but otherwise, yeah, it's all flat area. And it's it's a plateau, yeah. It's like a plate. Okay, so what about the war and in Israel? And that we'll see in our next time.